You know, we often talk about democracy like it's a high tower, lofty, distant, full of promises, echoing from Abuja or state capitals. But the truth, democracy doesn't begin at the top. It begins at the very bottom, right there in your ward and in your local government area, with the people you pass every day, the roads you walk, the waste you dodge, and the schools your children attend. And yet, once again, during the just concluded Lagos State local government elections, the polls told a painful truth, not through the ballots cast, but in the eerie silence of polling units. Low voter turnout, allegations of irregularities, political party apathy, public disinterest. The list is endless. Even after the government declared vehicular and pedestrian restrictions to encourage participation, the people still didn't show up. You didn't show up. Why? Because for far too long, we have dismissed local government elections as unimportant. We see the role of a chairman of a local government or a councillor as symbolic at best, disposable at worst. But make no mistake, this is where the people's power begins. When your local health center has no drugs, or your street is swallowed by refuse, or your community school is missing teachers, or worse, there's strike there. It's not the president you call. That is the truth. It's not even the governor. It's your local government. But how can we demand performance when we ignore the process that produces the performers? So let's be honest here. Local government areas, local council development areas, and wards have been treated as political afterthoughts, ghost offices, extension arms of state governors, rubber stamps for vested interests. And because we've looked away, they have gotten away with doing absolutely nothing. No transparency, no accountability, no vision, just titles and tinted cars. But here's the truth. Councillors control your wards, chairmen oversee your communities, and they receive monthly allocations to serve you. In recent months, Oshodi Isolo local government area has been severely affected by blocked drainages and uncollected refuse, with This Day newspaper reporting heaps of waste littering in the streets, contributing to cholera concerns in areas like Mafoluku and Ogunu local wards. Meanwhile, in Alimosho local government area, authorities cleared illegal structures along the major Olakunle Ojo collector drain in Ajegunle as recently as March 2025 to tackle persistent flood risks during the rainy season. And just across to Agege local government area, a Tribune newspaper survey revealed that for over a decade, no new primary schools have been built, exacerbating overcrowding as the population swells and compounding educational inequality for a growing young generation. Have you looked at the numbers? We have more young people than old people. So imagine if we had leaders there who were actually elected by the people, not selected by power brokers, by the way. Just imagine if we installed men and women who grew up in our communities, know our struggles, and most importantly, are accountable to us, not their party godfathers. That's the power of the vote. Democracy is not about sitting back and watching the game. It's about getting in the ring. It's about choosing who fixes your inner streets, who maintains your local government or your local markets, who builds your primary healthcare centers, who sits in your ward meetings and listens when your youth cry out for jobs. We continue to stay away from these elections, and we have no right to complain about when local councils become cash cows instead of service hubs and they are going around with their tax collectors. We can't build a country from the top down. It's impossible. We build it from the ground up, word by word, local government area by local government area. So the next time there's a local government elections, don't ask what's the point. Ask instead, what happens if I don't? Because if we don't show up for local government elections, we might as well be surrendering the most powerful part of democracy to silence. And to the few who never stop plotting in the shadows, let us all do better so we don't relinquish our powers to those who are consistently plotting in the dark. Let's demand for more, and most importantly, by God, let's show up. Ain't that right, Ms.
Absolutely correct. You are correct. And unfortunately, yesterday I had to be here at work. If I had known that this was going to happen some years ago, maybe I would have made sure my ward was here. So I'm hoping the people in Festac came out to vote for
Absolutely.
a good VC or chairman, because the roads in Amodofi, Festac to be precise, are non-existent. We have plenty of potholes with a little bit of road left. I'm not joking. Hey, it is the truth. It is the truth.
Look, I know. I'm blessed to know just the people in my life, and one of the young chap in my life happens to be a courier service driver, right? Okay. A delivery bike, and he tells me he cannot go to Ojo.
Nah.
He just can't do it. He's never going to plow those routes. Not because of the bad roads, because of the extortion.
Especially now when it rains, which is funny. My home is not too far from my daughter's school. 3 days ago, it's like you can walk it in about 5 or 10 minutes, but it took my wife an hour to drive to school and back 2 days ago, or rather 3 days ago.
Wild. Hey, as always, let's get started on Breakfast Extra. My co-host, Mizuno Appeal, joins me. We are going to go in depth just for you as we wait for the exit polls from the Lagos local government elections start to trickle in. Once again, welcome onto the program.
And good morning. Welcome. It's your favorite weekend show here, Breakfast Extra, for a Sunday installment where we serve you all the stories that matter with a side of insight, energy, and of course, plenty of heart. If I don't have that, my co-host does. In any case, we've got a power pack lineup this morning, starting with a big story where we dive into the controversy surrounding JAMB's newly announced cutoff marks. We'll be joined by educationist Dr. Joy Issa to unpack the implications of the new threshold and how they could affect access to tertiary education for thousands of students across the country. Then we shift gears to politics on the big report, where we dissect the fallout from the recent local government elections in Lagos, from voter apathy to alleged irregularities and the big wins. Our correspondents who covered the elections will bring us reports from Lagos Island, Elimosho, Ikeja, Surulere, and of course, all across Lagos. Plus, analysis from Kunle Lawal, who's standing by on the Electoral College. Also, still ahead is the big story. We turn to spotlight the drama at the National Assembly, where Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has been removed as chair of the Diaspora Committee. All of this and plenty more coming up. We'll take a very short break now and dive right into our first big story, and we'll be right back.
And good morning to you and welcome. Let's get started with our very first big report for this morning. And we are going to be looking at the highly anticipated local government elections. I won't say anticipated, given the numbers that we saw yesterday. Now, the polls opened at 9 a.m. yesterday and closed about 3 p.m., covering 20 local government areas and 37 local council development areas. Now, from the onset, tight security was in place. Vehicular movements restricted from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Checkpoints across the state and hundreds of police and interagency personnel deployed to maintain calm. But by mid-afternoon, authorities, including Police Commissioner Oluon Dari Jumo, praised the largely peaceful protest with no major reports of violence. Now, observers and stakeholders also lauded LASIAC's professionalism, despite noting low voter turnout and logistical delays.
However, controversy brewed as former Deputy Governor Senator Bucknor-Akerele alleged irregularities, missing names, relocated units, and called for cancellation, actually. Today on Big Report, we dissect these headline-making developments and also unpack what it all means. We'll hear from the News Central correspondents on the ground and also expert insight from Kunle Lawal, Executive Director of Electoral College. But first, let's put through to you this package by News Central, and we'll be back to have that conversation.
Across Lagos, polling stations like this one in Surulere tell the story of a democracy battling disinterest. While elections were held for 57 chairmen and 376 councillors, voter turnout was visibly low.
People have apathy for election naturally everywhere in Nigeria. So we are trying to encourage them. As a means of encouragement, this is their franchise, this is their right, their minimalist right to do and to elect their representative. That's why. I have voted. I have demonstrated my own personal rights in this electoral process. So that is everybody's right to select or vote their choices, regardless of parties, through these elective positions.
The Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission last year faced logistical hiccups, including the late arrival of materials and missing names on the voter register, dampening voter morale even further.
Okay, just take a look at it. Because they wanted to do election, they wanted to do stuffs. Why would they just say they want to do our streets? They want to put street lights. For how many years ago? There are a lot of roads that they haven't done. Why don't they focus on there? The general hospitals, you know how many? Yeah. Just imagine.
Meanwhile, councillorship candidate Jude Sunday revealed that despite being duly accredited and cleared to contest in his polling units in Jeremy Ifelodun, only 2 parties appeared on the ballot paper, excluding his and several others. His effort to uncover the reason behind this omission proved fruitless.
Our party logo is not there. Both councillor and the chairmanship.
All right, so how many other parties were initially accredited to run today?
They only accredited only 2 parties, which is APC and PDP.
But in Lagos Island, there was a bit more energy. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu cast his ballot at Ward E3, polling unit 006 in St. Stephen Nursery and Primary School, WAEC.
You know, all the ad hoc staff are on ground, you know, to go to their polling units, you know, and they have all their materials. So it's not as if there's a shortage of materials or anything. It's really just around ensuring that people get to their polling units, you know, on time. And I'm sure by now everybody should be there. You know, we're also glad that we have, a peaceful weather. So I expect that, you know, the time we have used for people to express their civic rights, they would use it well, you know, and everything will be done, will be conducted peacefully, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, we want to commend the effort of LASEC. You know, I saw one of their commissioners here. I also want to thank all the state equivalent of LASEC that have also come to watch and to observe, what we're doing here in Lagos.
Now, while some areas saw pockets of participation, the dominant mood across the state was one of disillusionment. As officials count the votes, the real challenge may lie in restoring public trust in the system. With local elections forming the backbone of grassroots governance, questions now linger over how much legitimacy these results will carry in the face of such apathy. In Lagos, for News Central, Israel Ifirobo.
Great report there by News Central correspondent Israel Ifirobo regarding the LGA elections from yesterday. And with us here today, we have Mr. Kunle Lawal, Executive Director of Electoral College. You're welcome, Mr. Kunle. Thank you very much for joining us on a Sunday morning right after the LGA elections from yesterday. So we're going to start with asking your evaluation of what you thought about the elections. You had the report there. There were cases of, well, accredited parties not being on the ballot. Only 2 parties in that Jeremy Ifelodun ward there. Rather shocking. And then we've got cases of voter apathy, which was rather obvious. But what's your all-about evaluation of the elections?
I'd like to quickly say at this point that I've always spoken about the centralization of local government elections, and here is why. Nigeria, I would say, or general states, and it's seen not only in Lagos State, the partisanship sentiment, because states control such elections, the partisan sentiment has seemed to have eroded local government elections. And in a state like Lagos, I'll give an example. Let's say Alimosho. Alimosho in PAC allocations receives 1.8 billion naira a month. And you can't play such narratives and hoard governance from the people. I always say local government elections, the first handshake to the people. So you can't hoard such democratic or civic rights from the people. Now, this continues. Lagos is massive. There were massive administrative faults. There were massive logistical problems. And what's most shocking is Lagos people, or Lagosians generally, do not even care about the ballots entirely. So here is a state that has about 10.7 million voters registered, that's with PVCs. Presidential, Lagos only accounts for 1.7 million voters. At gubernatorial, less than a million, a little less than a million. And at local government elections, Lagos State last recorded about 275,000 people participating in elections, which is critically about 3% of Lagos voting population. And I fear this election is far less. You cannot have a state that receives more than, let's say, more than 20 billion in FAC allocations to local governments, to 20 local governments. About 20 billion, no, sorry, about 13 billion, I'm sorry, please, about 13 billion in FAC allocations to local governments. And it's this poor. LISEC, for me, generally, failed at entirely its operations, not only administratively, logistically, but LISEC has also proved not to be non-partisan. And I'm critically saying this because I do not understand how a lot of people were omitted from the ballots. A lot of parties were stripped from the ballots. That is an infringement on the rights constitutionally. That's an infringement on the Electoral Act. That's an infringement generally on democracy. For me, I cannot even understand how LISEC even claims to be an electoral commission right now. I cannot.
Kole, thank you for that. You just give us a huge, very in-depth snapshot of what it was like yesterday. But we do have our correspondent, Victor Mbadike, who covered most of Lagos yesterday during the elections. He was at LASIEC as well, and he joins us live. He also was at Surulere and parts of Mushin and Yaba as well. Victor, good morning to you. Victor, are you there? Seem to have lost him.
Good morning.
Oh, there he is.
Victor, good morning. You covered LASIEC, you covered Surulere, Shomolu, and Mushin as well, and some parts of Yaba. And of course, there were reports of low turnout, and you did show that, especially in places of Mushin and Surulere as well. What's your assessment? Why is that so much low turnout that we saw yesterday? Speaking to the respondents, what did they have to say?
Actually, it is really sad because you understand and believe with me that this kind of elections really is regarded as the most important election as far as the chance of government is concerned. Considering the fact that these elections are something that, it's closer to the people. But sadly, we do not have that kind of turnout that as expected. Most polling units from Surulere down to Yaba and then to Butemeta, to Mushin, to Shomolu, the story is almost all the same. You get to find more football centers. They turn the streets into football. The irony of it all is that you have, these huge crowd of football players, interested in playing football, and then just a minute walk or less than a minute walk from that point, you find empty polling centers or polling units. And that's a contrast. I really can't understand why they are more interested in just having fun. Although we have to speak a few of them to ask questions. Basically, why are they, ignoring? Why are they not voting? Basically, and they kept saying that even if they have to vote, it may not be at the time that the election is. The voting process began. That they just want to play football, and after which they can consider coming out later to vote. You really can't talk them out of what they were doing into then going to vote. So it's that sad. And for the few people that I saw voted in, these places I mentioned earlier, were very old people, some of them, using walking stick to walk. And that's a huge contrast to what is expected. I mean, with all due respect, some of these guys don't have much time to spend again as far as living is concerned. But the youths who I expected to vote for their own lives to better the lives of their communities in terms of grassroots development, healthcare, getting better healthcare, primary healthcare centers, schools and all that. They are not just interested in all of that. So I begin to wonder where the excuses begin to come again from tomorrow. And that's the sad reality. We had most of them old men coming out to vote, while the younger ones are just playing football and just catching their phone. Well, I did not have the kind of experience that the likes of my colleague FA had in Victoria Island, the rest of that. There were no issues of technical issues with the beavers and all of that. Everything was working perfectly. We only had a challenge of people coming out to just exercise their franchise, which was the only challenge. We had no other challenge at all. But of course, in some centers, they boasted of, I think, about 50 or 50-something people coming to vote the whole day, out of almost 1,000 registered voters in those polling centers. That's too low.
Well, thank you very much, Victor. Victor, we might be coming back to you for more detail regarding your experience. But let's go back to Mr. Kunle Lawal. Mr. Kunle Lawal, from everything inside of the report, everything which Victor has just told us, what do you think? Do you think that this is enough call for a cancellation?
I will say it's a call for a cancellation. Let's be honest, that a democracy evolves around the fact that as long as it was conducted, as long as there were less than, there wasn't massive issues of violence, it's the choice of the people. I'll give an example. I'll critically state if out of a polling unit, which probably scored about, let's say, 1,000 or 1,500 people, if only 20 people came to vote, that's the choice, that's the civic right. It's also not voting is also constitutionally, I'll say, correct, because it's your choice to stand against the system. So if you choose not to vote, just understand that what will happen would be that your choice not to vote will be recorded as a choice. So those that chose to vote, which are 20, will decide who becomes local government chairman. Now, in Lagos, where you have LCDs and etc., local government LCDA chairmen or councillors are decided with less than 1,000 votes, which is not supposed to be possible because of Lagos population. But you can't talk about cancellation because it's a choice people have made. It's a choice people have accepted. And it's democratically right if they choose not to or if they choose to stand down. So you can't accuse the cancellation. I clearly feel, like I said, did quite a poor job in promotion of the elections, did a poor job in civic education, a dismal job in civic education for the Lagos State residents. And like I said, for me, logistically, it fails totally. I was watching
Kunle,
News Central yesterday,
Kunle,
I noticed
Kunle, I'm going to take you
logistical
back a bit. Kunle, I'm sorry to stop you there, but I'm going to take you back a bit. Now, if you say that in a ward where you had where you have 1,500 people registered and only 20 people come to vote, and from the information that we got from yesterday, most of the people who came to vote were actually party stalwarts, party participants, let me put it that way, not necessarily people or residents of the areas. That seems a bit, I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to go ahead with such a performance. This is me just playing devil's advocate here and asking whether you truly believe that that is true democracy. If people choose not to vote, then that's their choice, and whatever votes we have in there, even if it's just 20, let's go ahead with it and install a chairman, a councillor, a vice chairman. That's rather unfair, wouldn't you say, to the entire democratic process?
There's a difference between the morality of it, which is what you're speaking of, and then the legitimacy of it. The choice of the people not to vote is constitutional given rights. So the party stalwarts came out, then that means party stalwarts thought was more important. And it's really sad. It's really sad like I mentioned earlier, this is a Lagos state that has 10.7, a little over 10.7 million voters in Lagos, and has never in a presidential elections delivered up to 2 million votes. That is less than 20%. Lagos, in its gubernatorial elections, has never delivered 1 million votes. That means less than 1 million for gubernatorial. That is bad. Considering there are 10.72 million voters in Lagos, it is bad. It is below par. And in local government elections, like I stated, last local government elections was 3% of Lagos voting population, which was 275,000. I feel this is far worse.
Okay.
I do not, for me, I think Lagosians have abandoned governance, have dictated that governance is totally restricted to a particular party, and have totally neglected and decided to accept anything that governance presents to them.
Let me jump on that,
In a town where it's called a mega city.
Let me jump on that, Kunle. Now, if Lagos has absolutely abandoned governance, absolutely abandoned choice, isn't that indicative of a symptom that there's something wrong? And doesn't that make it seem like we have to go back and check exactly what the problem is? Perhaps they didn't have the opportunities to even have their PVCs in the first place. What's wrong with these wards? Have we checked it? Have we inquired? Have we investigated? It might not just be voter apathy, is what I'm saying. It could be something else. Then there is the fact that some of these wards didn't have representatives from the other parties on the ballot. What do these parties have to do now? What recourse do they take? Because they're duly registered, they're accredited, and then day of election, there's nothing. What happens? In time past, nothing ever happens. It's just business as usual. But what do you think should happen to the system, and what should these parties that weren't represented do?
Remember that I critically stated initially that Lagos has 10.7 million voters. That shows that Lagos is choosing not to vote. I mentioned the critical amount of voters. Now, as regards dissect, I have beyond reasonable doubts that dissect is playing a partisan game. Why would you put two parties on the ballot when there are more than 5 parties participating at different levels, as chairmanship levels, at local, at councillorship levels? You only decide to put 2 parties just to play like you are in parties. And for me, dissect has failed fully. I would not at any point state that dissect even wants a democracy in Lagos State. For me, I find dissect totally complicit in democracy. I'm surprised Lagosians would embrace this up. I'm surprised Lagosians think too little of what their governance is. I'm surprised, as much as we can say some people that receive PVCs and etc., I agree. But like I said, in a situation where you have 10.7 million voters, you can't be playing 275,000 in local government elections and saying people's PVCs are, no, it's a little too much. And even looking at your videos, you don't have massive videos from different locations. I've seen this girl's face multiple times. There was nothing to show for the local government elections. And that is an irresponsibility on behalf of dissect, which I consider a total failure. And also the citizens of Lagos mortgaging their responsibilities in an election, being honest.
Okay. Well, Kunle, I want to say thank you very much as we wrap up this session here. Thank you for your expert opinion and also observation that was noted. We will continue to come to you for some of these details, especially as we await the results. But thank you very much for joining us now.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Now, let's take a short break. As we bring in our next conversation, do stay tuned. We'll be right back inside of Breakfast Extra. Welcome back. It's time for another conversation, and this one I dare say is very interesting. Developments from the Nigeria's upper legislative chamber, where political tides appear to be shifting once again. Earlier this year, the Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan was suspended from Senate activities over what was described as unparliamentary conduct, a move that sparked national conversation over legislative power and discipline, gender politics, and also free speech. Now, fast forward to this week, or last week rather, her replacement as chairperson of the Senate Committee on Diaspora and NGOs has been officially announced. The new appointee is Senator Anyekan Bassey, representing Akwa Ibom Northeast Senatorial District. I get a report from News Central's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim detailing the change and replacement.
As plenary progressed, the Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions presented its report on the petition by one Sandra Harry, claiming to have been wrongfully dismissed by the West African Examination Council. The committee revealed that she was found guilty after its investigation, but appealed that her dismissal be instead converted to compulsory retirement, which generated reactions from lawmakers.
The Senate to urge the West Africa Examination Council to commute the dismissal of Ms. Minnie Sandra Harry to retirement.
She don't only deserve dismissal. This Senate should recommend to the Attorney General that candidates like this should be punished as a deterrent.
If we go ahead to accept this recommendation, we're encouraging people to tamper with examination scripts.
The Senate also adopted another report of its Ethics Committee, appealing to President Bola Tinubu to provide 200 million naira as compensation to the family of 2-year-old Ivan Omonria, who was killed during a raid by operatives of the NDLEA in Delta State.
We truly believe that this family needs to be protected from such agency that I believe can pay at least to ameliorate the loss.
We can't accept this in Nigeria, where we give you uniform, we pay you, and then you go and kill Nigerians that you are supposed to protect.
This murderer wearing NDLE uniform should be prosecuted according to Nigerian law with regards to murder.
The monetary compensation should be routed through Mr. President, while NDLEA is hereby directed to bear the full cost of the surgeries and treatment of the second child, who still has a bullet in one eye.
Just before plenary adjourned for the week, the Senate named Anyekan Bassey of Akwa Ibom Northeast Senatorial District as the new chair of its Committee on Diaspora and Non-Governmental Organizations, a position previously held by suspended Kogi lawmaker Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan.
Chairman of the Senate Committee on Diaspora and NGOs is distinguished Senator Anyekan Bassey, and it will take effect from today.
The latest moves comes amid an ongoing impasse between the Senate and Akpoti-Uduaghan, which led to her suspension, a decision recently faulted by the Federal High Court in Abuja, which directed the suspension be lifted. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Stella reporting there by Sagir Ibrahim, who will be joining us. Now, there's a lot to unpack, and joining us now is, of course, Sagir Ibrahim. He's been tracking the story from the Red Chamber, and also legal analyst Ebon Lua is here at Detiba, lead partner at the Brookgate Chambers. Thank you very much for joining us, Ebon. All right. But first, I'm going to start with Sagir Ibrahim. Sagir, while you're having breakfast, like we spotted you doing, could you please take us through exactly what happened after the announcement was made, the appointment for Senator Anyekan Bassey? Was it surprising? Was there any shift in anybody's chairs? How did they take it?
Oh, good morning, Maz. I just finished breakfast, in fact. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Nigerians. Thanks for having me on Breakfast Extra this morning. So the announcement was made such that one could only describe it as a strategic move not to raise or bat eyebrows. So plenary went on that Thursday as usual. All of the issues on the other paper were deliberated upon. You could see from the report that we started with the issue around the Committee on Public Ethics, Public Petitions, Code of Conduct, who spoke about a lady being investigated for alleged misconduct. that worked with the West African Examination Council, it snowballed to the issue of the Omonwea family and their sons, little kids who unfortunately were hit by stray bullets, if you let me put it that way, by operatives of the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, and they also called for compensation to those families. But then plenary was done. It was time to adjourn. And in a before we go moment, the Senate President made announcements that there's going to be a bit of shake-up. Committee chairman and new committee chairmen were appointed. And he also mentioned that deputy committee chair positions were going to be rotated to ensure equitable distribution, among lawmakers, in this case, lawmakers of the majority party, to ensure that at least one senator is a chairman or a deputy chairman of a committee. At no point in time did the Senate President mention Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's name. Rather, he mentioned that the Committee of Diaspora and Non-Governmental Organizations will now henceforth be chaired by Senator Anieka Mbasi. Ordinarily, he would mention Senator Anieka Mbasi succeeds so-and-so person or so-and-so senator who will then chair so-and-so committee. You would recall that this is not the first time, actually, that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan committee would be changed. Initially, she was the chairman of the Senate Committee on Local Content. She was then moved. When that reshuffle was done, like I expected that was going to be done, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan now chairs so-and-so committee, in this case, the Committee of Diaspora and NGO, taking over from so-and-so lawmaker. But in the wisdom of the Senate President, her name was not mentioned. But to a lot of us who have been observing all of these issues, we know she is the chairman of the committee. Her name was not mentioned when she was changed. No portfolio was then given to her after the announcement was made, which of course means one way or the other is just an attempt to maybe control the narrative, maybe make the optics not look so much like this is another ploy to maybe reduce our powers or our whims and caprices, on the floor of the Senate chambers. But then what has happened. And considering the fact that it is coming barely 24 hours after she had touted moves to return to the Senate chambers following the judgment of the Federal High Court, also put all of this in perspective. You recall that on Tuesday, it was touted that she was in fact going to return to Senate after the Federal High Court judgment. This in some way or the other caused some kind of frenzy, both at the entrance of the National Assembly and also at the entrance to the Senate gallery, which gives us access to the Senate chambers. That day, I can say for a fact that we got to the Senate chambers, we were supposed to access the gallery, and all of a sudden, the Sergeant at Arms began asking for appropriate identification to be sure who you are and where you are going to. Ordinarily, that didn't used to be the case. Now, if you put all of this together, some individuals had said maybe the increased presence of security, at the National Assembly as at the time was most likely because of the House of Representatives open week that was also coinciding with the judgment of the Federal High Court and Natasha Akpoti's resumption. But considering the fact that there was increased presence of security operatives at the gate on the day that Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan said she was going to resume, also considering the fact that 24 hours later, an announcement was made replacing her as the chairman of the committee she initially headed, with no replacement for her, because up until this moment, she has not been announced as the chairman of any other committee since then. It seemingly definitely points in the direction of maybe the National Assembly, maybe the Senate is cleaning house.
Cleaning house, trying to make her redundant, it would seem. But this is just a suggestion. And would you blame the Senate President for trying to keep her name from out of his mouth? Maybe he's really just, going through trauma at this point. But do stay sat here, because I still want to know something about Senator Shomale's inputs there in that report. I'll be coming back to you on that one. But first, let me turn to Ebonlua, who is in the House here with us. Ebon, I was wondering whether it is possible, can the Senate actually legally remove a suspended senator from a chair position in a committee without a formal recall or reinstatement process? Is this legal?
Well, considering all the issues on the ground, on July 4th, Justice Binta Nyako delivered judgment on the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti, and the court, in its wisdom, said that her suspension was excessive and overreaching, considering the provisions of the Senate Standing Orders 2015, which states that
a senator can only be suspended on the severity of the offense committed. If it's just a minor offense, maybe you could just be the Senate President could just order that, okay, the senator could be withdrawn for the rest of the sitting for that day. And then the second option is you could be suspended for 14 days. So putting everything together, the maximum period of time for which a senator could be suspended should be about 4 or 5 weeks. So the
which is not so with Natasha.
Which is not so with Senator Natasha. She was suspended for 6 months. So the court ruled that this suspension is kind of excessive and overreaching. So now the judgment has been delivered that the suspension should be lifted. And then there were other orders that the court made. She was fined 5 million naira, for committing contempt. That's contempt against the court. And I think she was also ordered to make publication in 2 national dailies, apologizing to the court, not to the Senate, as it's been misconceived. So now,
can you repeat that too? That she's supposed to
apologize to the court, not to the Senate. Not to the Senate, because she committed contempt, because the court has made it clear that all parties involved in this matter should not pass any public comment, either on social media or on any other kind of media, on any kind of platform. But Senator Natasha went ahead to post something on her Facebook, like a maybe sarcastic comment or satirical comment, apologizing to the Senate President after the court has said that.
It was enjoyable to read, by the way.
Yes, of course it was, but that was exactly what the court was saying, that she committed contempt ex facie curia, that is outside the face of the court. So that was why she was fined that 5 million naira. So coming to her removal as the chair of the Senate Committee on Diaspora and Non-Governmental Organizations, I think that according to the Senate standing order, the Senate President, like the previous speaker had said, kind of surreptitiously just, announced that removal without actually pronouncing or mentioning her name, so to say.
Like as if it was going to soften the impact of whatever it was of the replacement. And that's another question I have. Does it seem like it's still punitive, like her removal is still a punitive measure on the part of the Senate to teach her a lesson, even if the court has given an order?
Well, I think what the Senate President did, maybe, she was suspended on 6th March 2025. This is in July. Maybe he was just thinking, okay, the post has been vacant, and then if she comes back to the Senate, she probably could have been given another committee to head. So we cannot just jump to conclusion that because she was removed from this committee, I'm sure there are several other committees that are in the Senate there. So she could have been given another position.
I might be jumping to conclusion if I suggest that it was still a punitive measure by the Senate President to actually remove her, or rather replace her as that committee chairman, Sagir. And also take note of what Senator Shomale had said regarding her suspension, that it should have been a punitive measure in itself and not an outright suspension. Is that all reflecting on the eventuality we see here about her replacement, that it is in some way a punitive measure being taken by the Senate? Sagir.
Well, Mas, we cannot say particularly whether it has been that. Reasons being that up until this moment, like I mentioned, her name has still not been mentioned. So it's going to be a very easy one for the Senate to clarify its position. But then, I mean, in cases like this, it's been hushed. It has not made any other submissions aside the statement that it had made, stating that she still owes the chair and the Senate an apology for her utterances, her outburst, and also her conduct on the floor of the chambers. So I cannot say precisely whether this has been a punitive measure or perhaps just a routine change of chairmanship positions, committee chairmanship positions, and all of that. But what I can tell you particularly at this moment is no announcement has been made assigning her another committee portfolio, she still remains under suspension. Whether she's going to return to the National Assembly, we can only see when the next legislative week commences, which is Tuesday this week, since today is Sunday and it's a new week already. So we can only wait to see what the dynamics are going to take. Ever since the satirical, cryptic message to the Senate, we've really not seen her give any jab or throw any jab to the National Assembly. So at this point, what I can say is we can only wait, observe the trends, and see what the new week has to offer.
I think she caught that stop there regarding the jabs there, Sergey, but thank you very much. I'm going to let you get back to your sandwich. I think you really want to get back to breakfast. Thank you very much. We still have Ebun right here. Ebun, can she contest this? Can she challenge in court once again that this removal, do you think?
The removal from the chair. Of course, she can challenge it, but I think she has a lot of legal battles to contend with presently. Because even this present judgment that was delivered on July 4th, she already filed an appeal. On July 9th, she already filed an appeal, 6-ground appeal against the judgment of the court, and I'm only going to speak on one of it, which is the imposition of the 5 million naira fine against her. She's contending on the fact that the content that she committed was not in the face of the court. If it were to be in the face of the court means when a court's procedure is ongoing, a court is sitting, and then you just make an unruly remarks, or you were rude to the court, or you just made a kind of inflammatory remarks in the court. That means you are committing content in the face of the court, and that will pass for a criminal offense. But the one the court accused her is civil in nature. That's ex facie courier. That's she committed that content outside the face of the court.
What's the constitution around that one now? If you can unpack that for us. So she couldn't have spoken about the matter if she was instructed not to speak on any...
She was instructed not to speak, all parties involved. She wasn't the only one instructed not to speak.
On media?
Yes.
So is Facebook considered media at this point?
Well, with the advent of technology, and I think Facebook is considered a media platform, although she's saying that she was not referring to the court. When she was referring to the Senate.
Here, because Facebook, Instagram, social media generally is considered, they're considered expressive platforms.
Of course, yes.
So if I'm going to go on my Facebook or my Instagram and put up a post that is, expressive, an expression, does the court have any jurisdiction over what I say on these medium?
Of course the court has, and I think that particular post was referred to when the matter was ongoing in court. And then she's contesting that she wasn't referring to the court, that she was referring to the Senate president. But prior to that time, the court had already given the order that do not make any public comments on this particular matter. All parties involved. So it was after that she put up that post, and that is what is putting her in trouble now.
Oh, trouble you call it, trouble it might not be, but Ebunua, thank you very much for giving us clarity on this issue here. And of course, let's also say thank you to Sager, who is perhaps maybe done with his breakfast now. Do stay tuned. It's only an hour gone inside of Breakfast Extra. We've still got 2 more to go, and plenty of conversation inside. We'll be right back. And this time, let's do the news. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now we begin with politics. Lagos State on Saturday conducted elections for local government chairmen and councillors, but what should have been a day of civic enthusiasm turned out to be quiet in most parts of the state. News Central reports on the mixed atmosphere across polling units.
Lagos. Polling stations like this one in Surulere tell the story of a democracy battling disinterest. While elections were held for 57 chairmen and 376 councillors, voter turnout was visibly low.
People have apathy for election naturally everywhere in Nigeria. So we are trying to encourage them. As a means of encouragement, this is their franchise, this is their right, their minimalist right to do and to elect their representative. That's why. I have voted. I have demonstrated my own personal rights in this electoral process. So that is everybody's right to select or vote their choices, regardless of parties, through these elective positions.
the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, LASIEC, faced logistical hiccups, including the late arrival of materials and missing names on the voter register, dampening voter morale even further.
Okay, just take a look at it. Because they wanted to do election, they wanted to do stuffs. Why would they just say they want to do our streets? They want to put street lights. For how many years ago? There are a lot of roads that they haven't done. Why don't they focus on there? The general hospitals, you know how many? Yeah. Just imagine.
Meanwhile, councillorship candidate Jude Sunday revealed that despite being duly accredited and cleared to contest in his polling units in Jeremy Ifelodun, only 2 parties appeared on the ballot paper, excluding his and several others. His effort to uncover the reason behind this omission proved fruitless.
Our party logo is not there. Both councillor and the chairmanship.
All right, so how many other parties were initially accredited to run today?
They only accredited only 2 parties, which is APC and PDP.
But in Lagos Island, there was a bit more energy. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu cast his ballot at Ward E3, polling unit 006 in St. Stephen Nursery and Primary School, WAEC.
You know, all the ad hoc staff are on ground, you know, to go to their polling units, you know, and they have all their materials. So it's not as if there's a shortage of materials or anything. It's really just around ensuring that people get to their polling units, you know, on time. And I'm sure by now, everybody should be there. You know, we're also glad that we have, a peaceful weather. So I expect that, you know, the time we have used for people to express their civic rights, they would use it well, you know, and everything will be done, will be conducted peacefully, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, we want to commend the effort of LASIEC. You know, I saw one of their commissioners here. I also want to thank all the state equivalent of LASIEC that have also come to watch and to observe, what we're doing here in Lagos.
Now, while some areas saw pockets of participation, the dominant mood across the state was one of disillusionment. As officials count the votes, the real challenge may lie in restoring public trust in the system. With local elections forming the backbone of grassroots governance, questions now linger over how much legitimacy these results will carry in the face of such apathy. In Lagos, for News Central, Israel Ifirobo.
Now, still talking politics. The senator representing the Federal Capital Territory in the National Assembly, Ireti Kingibe, has formally announced her resignation from the Labour Party and declared her defection to the African Democratic Congress ahead of the 2027 general elections. Speaking to journalists in Abuja, Kingibe described her defection as a deliberate and strategic political move. She added that her formal induction into the ADC could be marked by celebration. Kingibe expressed confidence in the leadership of her new party, acknowledging that the ADC is still in its developmental phase. And let's give an update on the public hearing on the Constitution review in the Northern region. In North Central, state creation, traditional leadership, and gender inclusion were among key demands as the House of Representatives Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution began its North Central Zonal Public Hearing in Minna, Niger State. The hearing covered Niger, Kogi, and Kwara states, featured robust engagement from civil society government officials, traditional rulers, and also concerned citizens. Top of the list was calls for the creation of 46 new states, 12 of them from the North Central Zone, and over 100 new local governments and constitutional roles for royal fathers.
People living with disabilities, they don't have a place in the justice system. Look at local government autonomy in totality, both finance, administrative, and otherwise. Especially the issue of electoral bodies. If we are in Nigeria, we have one INEC. Why should we have state electoral commission? We have also looked at judicial autonomy. The judiciary should be independent. That is the only way they will dispense justice without fear or favor. The primary school teachers now are at the mercy of the state government and the local government. That is why we said there should be an equitable forum that they will get their direct funding.
Niger State in support of the bill because it's going to make Nigeria to really be the giant of Africa by giving us reserved seats. Right now we have less than 5% of women in parliament.
And that's all the news we have for you this hour. Do stay tuned. We've got more coming inside of Breakfast Extra for Conversation. We'll be back.
And you're welcome back. You're still tuned in to Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. As time for us to zoom in on Lagos State, where the local government elections have just been concluded, but not without controversy. Across Lagos, 20 local government areas and 37 LCDAs, the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, LASIAC, has coordinated the polls under tight security and movement restrictions. While some stakeholders applauded the peaceful process and conduct of the election or the exercise, there's also been growing criticism over voter apathy, logistical hitches, and of course allegations of disenfranchisement. Perhaps most explosive were comments from former Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Senator Bucknor-Akerele, who called for a total cancellation of the exercise, citing relocated polling units, missing voter names, and what she described as a compromised process.
Are we merely seeing the symptoms or, growing pains in the electoral process? Well, joining us this morning to unpack it all, we have with us Dave Agbola, Chief Press Secretary to the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, bringing us a governance and legislative perspective. You're welcome, Mr. Agbola. Thank you very much for joining us on a Sunday morning. We're always very appreciative of people who can do that. So, sir, what do you think about the Lagos State elections from yesterday? LASIAC have hailed the elections as peaceful, and indeed it was, and they also say it was credible, but was it indeed? What do you think?
Thank you everyone from the city sites for having me here today. Well, the election in Lagos yesterday, the election was peaceful. This is Lagos, and it's like over the years, Lagos dictates to what happens in other, it takes as prefers as regards what happens in other states of the country, and so that's why it's called state of excellence. The elections that were conducted in virtually all the XCDs, IDs in Lagos yesterday, I don't think there was any incident of violence, any incident of ballot box snatching and all that. And let's not forget that the local government election, local government we are talking about the grassroots, and that is where the election usually takes place, any part of the world. So if Lagos could have it that smooth yesterday, that we didn't hear issues like I mentioned, violence and there and all that, people were even anticipated that might likely happen. So I would say the election went well yesterday, as far as I am concerned, especially judging from some of the the reports we got from different local governments and FCDs in the state.
Now, you say that so far, according to your assessment, it seemed to be, hitch-free and, void of any violence. But there has also been controversy, or rather criticism, by political parties who have cited apathy and exclusion on the ballot paper. Most recently is from a ward, one of the candidates of the SDP in Ajurumi Felodu local government area. There's also been calls of irregularities and also polls relocation, voters not finding their name on the register and all of that. And those cannot be ignored. Do you think that the Assembly will in time review LASIAC given these irregularities that we've seen?
There's no way elections will be held like that yesterday. There will not be one complaint or the other from whatever part of the state. some saying, as you say now, that okay, they can't find their party on the ballot paper and all that. I really hear that from most of the edges I followed up with yesterday. But that's just as we have. Yet it's expected. If we are meant to improve on whatever we do, whatever that happens, we are meant to do better so that we avert whatever that we have seen in the previous activities carried out. So I believe definitely if there's any need per se to look into that, the assembly is the duty of the assembly to get that done. But I am not speaking in that regard. Now I'm just saying it's expected that if there is any lacuna noticed, especially yesterday, so it's the journalists on the assembly to review whatever that comes out of that, and then make sure that the forthcoming elections holding in the state are as better as they can make them be.
They can be indeed. Some observers have also claimed that the exercise merely reinforced the dominance of the ruling party and left little room for opposition or even civic engagement. From your vantage point, was this a true contest or of ideas and ideals or otherwise?
I want to believe that everybody was given the fair playground yesterday to participate in the election. And before, you heard that so a particular word, APC got something, and then the other party got nothing. But I think yesterday it's obvious. Everybody, it's a matter of you coming out to show that okay, I've worked during the campaign period, and then it's time for people to also come and show me that I really worked. In all honesty, during the electioneering, if you move through Lagos, you will notice that you hardly see other parties campaigning. That's the fact. And you can take it anywhere. You see banners of APC or Progressive Congress and whatever, everywhere you go to. And you see there are 2 week campaign period too, that they were everywhere. But we didn't see other parties. We didn't see them. So, and then when the election is done, is conducted, and the result comes out, you now see them some other parties carry power and all that. Elections, as far as I know so far, it's about you engaging with the residents, the people around you, let them know that you mean business. Election actually is about business. And I give it to APC. This particular AG election that was just conducted yesterday, APC went all out. Despite the fact that in Lagos State believe that is APC control and all that, they didn't relax. They didn't rest on their horse and they didn't say, oh, we are in charge and then we can go and relax. No, they were all out. So I believe all our parties were given the fair playground, and it's not left for them to see what they did during the electioneering. And it's whatever they do or did during the electioneering that will come to play. It's obvious that will come to play on the election day. You say you are PDP, you are LP or APC, whatever, and during electioneering, your people cannot see you. Then you don't expect that on the election day they will come to your side. Election is not done that way. So I believe that everything that was done yesterday was as a result of whatever that happened during electioneering.
Mr. Agbola, so I hear you on what you're saying regarding the APC's efforts and the lack thereof of the efforts of the other parties. But isn't it about time that we stopped treating voter apathy as the disease and see it as a symptom instead? If we see it as a symptom, perhaps maybe then we'll be forced to critically look at it and ask why there is voter apathy. Regarding the campaign, well, were the parties, for instance, engaged with the citizenry, or whose responsibility is it when it comes to voter education? Is it the parties? Is it LASIK? Are there any other bodies that should actually engage citizens when it comes to voting and how it matters to them, their constituents, and even them individually? Wouldn't you say that this is necessary, that this should be a critical thought for the bodies that are in charge of electioneering in Lagos and even in Nigeria?
So that voters apathy, well, this is not new. We've been having this literally all the time we've been having elections. Yes, it's not a good thing. Voters should go out there and exercise their civic rights, civic duty. And I think, just as you mentioned different bodies, different sectors. Everybody is involved. People need to be more informed. Rather, people need to be more educated as far as them coming out to vote, to exercise their civic rights. Gone are those days. These days, I mean, especially imagine what happened in Lagos. We didn't hear that, they were fighting here, or some people killed somebody here. They said some houses are blamed or whatever, just like we had it in the 80s, in the early 80s, and all that. So people should know better that election period, you should engage with the so-called politicians, as they say. No, we are all politicians. We are all play politics.
Just a second there, Mr. Divagbola.
So people should...
Just a second there, Mr. Div. Just a second there, Mr. Divagbola. You get my question right, but I really need you to be more critical here. Now, what I'm asking is this. The LGA, LCDA elections, whether chairman, councillor, vice chairman, it's a grassroots level election. Grassroots would mean that if you take a look at the demography, there are people who might not be as aware. In fact, the population of people who wouldn't be as aware would be even greater. Whose responsibility is it then to educate these people of the effect of their voting or not voting? Should it be the parties? They're more concerned about campaigning, which is their right. But then again, voter education should be whose responsibility, especially when it comes to these people who are not as educated, since we're talking grassroots.
I'll answer that question directly now. Voter education is first and foremost the responsibility of last year. They are the one conducting elections. Then the party too, or the parties rather, they need to tell their people. And even the religious bodies are meant to also talk to their people, the need for them to participate in elections. I think basically what usually causes voter parties is the fact that, if I go, my vote will not count. But I believe we are past that level now, where that's the level that if you don't go out, that your vote that you think will not count may even count against you, because if you are there, that's when you use your vote to decide if your voice, as we say, is your voice. So when you're not there, that means your voice will not be heard. So, and you said that talking about education, I will keep saying, I will keep giving it to APC, for instance, in Lagos, this last election here yesterday. They were making the announcement on the radio, on TV. They had their people moving here and there. So that's just for the party aspect. So all other parties too should endeavor join in this in this gospeling, so to say, if I may put it that way. Every party should not say, this is a real party in the state today, I should not be involved in terms of educating people. All of us are involved in this. So, I've mentioned last year, I've mentioned the government itself, that's why we have anyway, every organization or body that is meant to disseminate information in this regard. And that's why you mentioned religious bodies. People go to churches on Sundays, on Fridays, they go to mosques and all that. Every area that people are gathering, it should be the duty of anybody, any leader there to let people know you should be participating in democracy. This is what we call democracy in action.
All right.
It's not a matter of, I'll just sit down at home or vote.
Mr. Agbola, I have to ask, I want to circle back to something that you said. You said that when it comes to campaigning during the elections, that the parties that you saw that was most dominant on the roads and with their jingles being played on radio and television was mostly, the APC and maybe PDP, and the other parties weren't there. But in spite of that level of competitiveness, we still saw a low turnout at the polls. Not many of them came out. And so it begs to ask the question about choice and variety. If last year have been cited to have irregularities and political party apathy where there were exclusions on the ballot box. Do you think that that has also affected the turnout as well? Because clearly the people most have spoken, given the level of competitiveness that we saw.
If there is any lacuna on the part of last year, I believe by now they will know. Some areas that there were issues, as I said, maybe missing party logo on the ballot paper. It is their job to look into that. But that doesn't mean that they can come out and vote and cast their vote. On the ballot paper, we have different parties. And yes, yesterday the elections ended yesterday. Different parties were involved. That's one thing I know.
Well,
so if there at all there was any award or LD or whatever where we had issue with LASEC, I believe LASEC will look into that. But that doesn't mean people. No, that's what you are saying. That you are saying talking about that party that maybe it's only APC or PDP or thereabout that we get to know about. It is the problem with other parties, all those parties. If they can come out and
that's what I'm saying. You keep saying
we are also involved.
You keep saying it's about the other parties and them not letting people know that they're not involved. There was a report that we filed where one of the candidates came out to say that he was cleared by LASEC and he was supposed to be on the ballot and his name wasn't there. When you look at the ballot paper on that report, there was only two parties on there, APC and PDP, the parties who heavily campaigned in that area. But when you look at the ballot box there, which is very transparent, the transparent plastic bags, you can literally count the ballot papers inside that bag. And so that's why I'm asking, and you are the Chief Press Secretary of the House of Assembly, is there ever going to be a legislative move by the House of Assembly to make sure that there's fairness in terms of competitiveness regarding local government elections and credibility on both parts, so that the voters have options?
Okay. Yes. The Lagos House Assembly has always been fair. So definitely, they just for the Assembly to improve on what they are doing. I know at every any gathering, any conduct of election like this, I believe there will always be a review of what happened, what inspired, and how to get better. So if our belief is there for Assembly to talk to LASEC, to come up with regulations, as the case may be, to meet whatever that happened yesterday, so that it will not be repeated. I'm very sure Assembly will look into that. I'm very sure.
Well, I hope
the Assembly is always there.
Thank you so much, sir. We hope that in looking to that, there will be fairness, and for those wards who the parties who were cleared to run on that day, or whose name was supposed to be on the ballot paper were not, will be properly addressed as it deemed fit by the law. But we must say thank you, Mr. Dave Agbola, who's the Chief Press Secretary to the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. Once again, thank you. Let's go on a short break, shall we? We'll switch from politics to education after the break. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's another big story here. Let's tackle a pressing concern for millions of young Nigerians. JAMS recently announced minimum UTME cutoff marks for tertiary admission. Now, at a policy meeting in Abuja on the 8th of July, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, alongside university vice-chancellors, a lot of them, and polytechnic rectors, said the minimum cutoff they set the minimum cutoff at 150 for universities, 140 for nursing colleges, and 100 for polytechnics, colleges of education, and agriculture. Let's remember, this is out of 400.
Now, this is a 10-point increase from the previous 140 baseline. While JAM argues the move seeks to preserve academic standards, the decision has drawn sharp criticism from students, parents, and even universities have voiced concern that the hike could worsen access and heighten inequality. Joining us today to unpack the implications is Dr. Joy Issa, an educationist and president of the Issa School of Education. Dr. Issa, thank you for being here. Thank you who are joining us. She's a friend of the house as usual.
Yes, indeed. Judith, hang on. Let me say something, and I'm asking Dr. Isa's permission. Can I tell them your reaction when I called you up yesterday to join us on the show today to have this conversation? There was one word you used. I don't know if you let me tell them what it was. May I?
Yes, you may.
She said they are stupid.
Well, nothing less, because that you really just voiced my opinion, right? And Dr. Isa, so we got to start. Why the adjective stupid to describe that move?
To clarify, I think I said that was stupid,
Exactly.
not they are stupid.
That was stupid.
That was stupid.
Okay. My apologies. That was stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to look at it in context. Nigeria's JAM is not the only organization that pays attention to grade boundaries or entry criteria. Every international organization does that. When students score very poorly, for example, they might lower the grade boundaries so more children can get into universities. When they score higher, they might raise that. It does happen, not only in Nigeria. Having said that, why we keep maintaining a low standard is the real issue. If we believe that we are educating our children, that we are providing quality education in our public schools, in our private schools, and we are setting our children up to succeed, why the grade boundary should be lower than 50% is really, unbecoming. It's something to wonder about. Are we saying that we're not raising a population of children who can think? Are we saying we're not raising a population of children who can pass examinations? Are we saying that we're just churning out, low-level thinkers who will come out and cannot function in our schools and in our universities? If you look at the grade, the discrepancy in the grades, it's not much, the difference between universities and the colleges of education and nursing, saying, 150 and 100. That's okay. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that it is so low. That is the big issue. And I get it. Universities want to have children in, children are doing well. So you say it's a 10% increase from what it was before, was 140, now it's 150. Well, low is low regardless. Lower than 50% is lower than 50%. If I go to school for 12 years and I cannot come out and at least score average 50% to demonstrate that I understood half of what I was taught, then honestly, again, we, the adults who are providing this education, we need to look at ourselves and change what we're doing in our secondary schools so that when the children come out, they can pass the high-stakes exams.
Now, Doctor, just permit me, right, to do this, and I fear that I have to make a case, giving the bane of my job, the perks of my job, but we know how our education system is. We understand that the quality of education in the public and private part of it is worlds and miles apart, right? And so in the underserved area, hard to reach area, and the rural students, rural areas as well, people have argued, and critics have argued, that this increase will exclude them from access to higher education. What would be your response to that?
My response would be for us to provide more of an intervention to support them, as opposed to churning out people who cannot access education. Yeah. Access is not equitable, don't get me wrong. So I'm not saying that all the children can hit all the courses in all the universities. Let's be aware, or let's be honest with ourselves. If we say that we know that there are children, there are young people in underserved communities who don't have enough teachers to even help them access the curriculum. So why do we think the universities should take on the burden? If you get what I mean. So if I've gone through an education that is suboptimal, where's my remedial college? Where's the space for me to acquire skills that I need to move forward? Again, why do we have everyone struggling to go into university? Why can't we have children, young people who are skilled, who are great with their hands, who are great with their minds, who can do other things? Why do we have to promote the white-collar jobs? And then we go outside to import artisans and people who have been trained to use their hands. Look at the polytechnics, colleges of agriculture and things like that. Okay, so you want me to score at least 100 in JAM to get into the College of Agriculture, for example, or education, not a problem. When I get in there, what are you going to teach me? Are you going to remediate my areas of weakness? So I go back to the curriculum. I like to talk about curriculum. When children come into these schools with low scores, what are we doing to remediate their areas of weakness? Are we saying, okay, Joy, we understand, we just, you barely made it in, but we're not going to do anything about it anyway. We have set a line, we have written 10 things we're going to teach you this year, 10 next year, 10 then, and that is it. We're not going to do anything differently. We are doing our children a disservice. Children from underserved communities can be supported within the tertiary organizations if the tertiary organizations pay attention to that dichotomy or that discrepancy. So if someone comes in with a 300 and that person is in the same classroom as someone with a 140 or a 150, tell me, how is that supposed to be a fair combination, a fair grouping of children? We now have to put our lecturers on the spot here, unfortunately. In this country, lecturers are known to be one size fits all. They give you the handouts, they give their notes, this is what they're doing, this is what they've done. If you don't get the handouts, unfortunately, you may not pass. But I came in at 100. I don't have the same knowledge and skill set as someone who came in at 300. So how are you, my lecturer, going to help me access that information? That is what education is. That is getting children to learn, getting people to understand how they learn and how to move forward. We don't differentiate, we don't provide that access, and then you throw it back at the secondary school, teachers saying, well, they didn't teach them enough, so they're not there. We know that there's a bell curve, which is why grade boundaries can be adjusted. So what are we doing to cater to the people at the lower end? It's not even about them being in a rural community or not. It's about us acknowledging that some children are slower than others, some children perform lower than others, and we as the educators need to pay attention to that group, not just to those who score 300 and we're celebrating them.
Yeah. Doctor,
how do we support the children at the bottom of the ladder, if you will?
Yeah. Doctor, that's just fantastic the way you've put it. I can't wait to see you as Minister for Education or something. However, and I do agree with you, I do not think that it's...
Hey man, what are you doing? No, don't do that.
He's celebrating it, he's celebrating in advance. But I do agree with you. I think that no matter the class that you are, intelligence is intelligence, brilliance is brilliance, whether you like it or not. Poor students can actually match up to those from privileged homes. You just have to provide them with that education. But is JAM not trying to tell us something here when they're reducing these cutoff marks to 150? Because these same students they're setting these exams for, who even score maybe about 150, when they're taken to other climes outside of the country, they perform even better, yet with the education that they received here in Nigeria. So is it something about what exactly is it about? Is it that JAM is setting these questions perhaps maybe too high, too difficult, and they know it? Because we have people, students who excel outside of Nigeria who didn't even pass, in quote, JAM.
Well, we'll have to explore the data to verify that assumption, really. Because children, underperforming children based on the cutoff are those who don't get to a certain mark. They may be underperforming because one, maybe they didn't understand the language of instruction. Maybe they didn't have adequate instruction, that there was no teacher available, no textbook, no technology, multiple limitations. So where those limitations are remediated, where you now have a good teacher, you now have technology, you now have a textbook, of course you do better. When you don't even have to take them abroad for them to do better. We see a significant improvement in student performance when they're taken from some public schools to some private schools that have more provision, where the teachers have training on how to deal with learning delays or learning disabilities. We see a significant improvement in the children's ability to perform. Again, I have to say though, as an organization, universities, where is the differentiation? Where is the support for the underperforming students? Everybody celebrates the gold medalists, the winners, but where is the celebration for those who made the effort, who put in the work, who tried? Where's that success story? Where is the, and again, for some of the private schools, I have to say, where's the energy? So we all want to get those who scored 300. So by the time they finish, they graduate with a 2-1 in the first class. Where's your effort as a teacher? Where's that story of Joy came in at 100, maybe set to get maybe a 3rd class or a 2-2, but we put in effort, we supported, we provided remediation, there was online platform, this and that, and she came out with the 1st class. That's our success story in our university. Where's that narrative? I doubt that a number of parents would send their children to that school saying, oh no, I don't want my children sitting with low-level thinkers. Going back though to JAMB, the exam has been on, every country has their entry examination, and every country has a right to have that. The Universities Commission, all the leaders, they sit together and they decide. Again, the challenge is, are we honest with ourselves? Are we able to say that our children are adequately prepared to take that examination? Technological issues created gaps. Mm-hmm. Gaps in language. I promise you there are children in this country that have not used a computer and were required to take an exam that is a CBT exam, computer-based testing. There are children whose language of instruction, even in secondary, remains, let's call it broken English, because it's kind of a mix of English and the local language in the district. And those children are supposed to compete with the children in the urban communities. We are not doing our children, we're doing them a disservice, honestly. Let's be honest with where we are, to say, okay, you know what, in our school, these are our limitations, these are the courses our children can take. Why do we have children take 10, 12 courses, for example, in WAEC? When we know they have challenges, how many credits do we need to get into school, by the way? We need 5.
At my time, it was 7.
Can we get children to take 6 or 7 so that they're more likely to succeed?
I'll say mine was 7. Now that we're talking about, underserved and, honesty in our system, we have to talk about that other thing that happened over the week, and that much ado about nothing as it regards age and age of admission or entry into the university. They have reaffirmed, JAM have reaffirmed their stance that it's going to be still 16 years and no more than 16 years. If I were to put my thoughts on it, I would say, why are we bothered about age? We haven't been able to focus on getting, hitting the 50% mark, compared to age, right? But we must still talk about it. What do you think about that move as per 16? Because the argument is 16 is too young to go into university. They're going to face bullying and other kinds of vices, which, fair enough, but should there not be a place of guidance in our universities, like you rightfully put, where, more privileged children, more intelligent children, children who are incredibly gifted, who have to be in university, who have passed all their mark, can be university by 14 or 15, but are guided through. Can there not be a place for that? And is 16, should we be focusing on the age as opposed to guidance and proper, guardrails when it comes to the children?
I love the word protection. We do need to pay attention to safeguarding and child protection. When you send children to an adult environment, you're setting them up for challenges. So if we say university is an environment where we have adults and the legal age or the adult age is 18, then my argument is, why are we sending 16-year-olds into an adult environment without guidance and the guardrails, as you have put it? Universities, university lecturers, university educators understand or are trained, are not trained to handle children. Mm-hmm. They're trained to teach adults, right? They're trained to support older people. So when you now compel them to take younger people you are offsetting the entire system. They have to reset their systems. They have to reset policies. They have to reset systems for monitoring and supervising. Are they going to put all the young children in a specific hostel so they can check and make sure they're not drinking and smoking and doing drugs like the older children? What are you going to put in place? So there's a whole system around safeguarding young children in an adult environment. In other countries, more developed countries, you do have those systems in place. You have systems in place where minors are put in an adult environment. They have to show ID everywhere. There are certain places they are not allowed to go. Certain parties they're not allowed to go to because they are underage. They're not allowed to buy alcohol. There's so many rules, and the rules are followed effectively. Back to Nigeria. JAM, I don't understand why the universities are going against the Ministry of Education's clearly laid out plan of a 934 system, or call it 6334 system. You get into primary at 5, you come out of SS3 at 17, heading to university at 18. It's very clearly laid out. And so why are we rewarding schools and parents for breaking the rules and going against the system? Educators, leaders, thought leaders have come together and outlined curriculum and outlined growth trajectories, saying, look, give the children 6 years in lower school, in primary, put them in early years, let them learn to play, let them learn to take turns, let them learn social skills, do all of that in early years and in primary. Then you now begin to focus on subject specialisms in secondary. So you have junior secondary, senior secondary, and their gateway exams through all of that. Then you can now launch them into the deep in the world of adulthood, where they have sort of grown up, they've made a choice on what they'd like to focus their attention on in terms of studies. By the time they come out, they're more mature and more able to manage the world of work.
But
in an attempt to circumvent the system, we skip nursery, then we skip 1 year in primary, then you skip and you skip.
But Doctor, there can be outliers as well. There can be persons who or children who are academically gifted or just sound and who just pass all the metrics. What happens to those outliers?
I understand that there can be outliers. You have clearly stated what are the measurement matrices. What are we using to assess this outlier category of people? Are we using exam scores only? Are we using attitudinal surveys to check their well-being? So we don't just check quantitative aptitude and reasoning and their content knowledge in terms of their subjects, but we also check their well-being and say, okay, Joy is exceptional. She is gifted and talented. University, whatever your name is, are you able to take Joy? Are you able to safely provide able to provide a safe learning environment for her within this adult context? I don't know which Nigerian universities have policies for underage children. I'm not sure. I don't know which of them have safeguarding policies. So I guess that is the suggestion that would say, since these children are coming out, okay, universities, what are you going to do about them? Can you be deliberate about paying attention to their well-being, monitoring them, supervising them, ensuring that they don't end up being negatively influenced by the others who may already have been going down a wrong path, or being introduced early to the world of adults, let's put it that way.
Doctor, let me add something.
So the onus would be on the universities really to provide that safeguarding training for their faculty and then support systems and procedures, definitely.
I'd like to add something else to our focus here. We've talked about, we're kind of like skimming around talking about the responsibilities parents have when they're jumping classes for their kids. The responsibility for JAM, what to exactly set the weather cutoff or the age limit for entry into universities. But then while we're still talking about safeguarding young minors who have, well, maybe they're intelligent enough to go through into these systems at such early ages, there is such a thing as such a consideration to be given to predators already inside of the system. Whose responsibility is that? There's a case currently from 2 weeks ago where the Dean of School of Agriculture for LASU was suspended. I think Dr. Tunji Abanikonda. He was suspended for certain practices as inhumanity to the students and also sexual harassment. If children who get into the system meet with, it's not just their outward expressions of, adolescence that has to be considered. There's also the case of these predators. Whose responsibility is that?
Universities are supposed to run police checks and reference checks on all staff. All of us in education, we're supposed to have safeguarding training. We're supposed to, in order to be able to work with children, you are supposed to get your police checks done. Universities should not employ people with without references. Unfortunately, again, our system is not ideal, let's put it that way. We run these organizations without necessarily applying the policies that we know we should apply. So where we get feedback on our deans, our lecturers, our faculty members, what do we do with that feedback? What is the whistleblowing policy of the organization, and who is going to enforce the correctional measures? So if I perpetrated sexual harassment, for example, on any of my students, and I resign from a university and go to another one, is the new university going to get a reference? Am I going to be put? We don't have a sexual offenders register. We don't have a list saying, okay, this person is not allowed to work with children for prior issues. We don't have any of those things. Those things exist in more developed nations, even though some people, even over there, still try and circumvent the system, but there are at least guardrails, right? They're gateways to try and prevent the predators. So now you are further complicating this issue, right? Because we want to send children to an adult environment where they may be exposed to people who are deliberately trying to prey on the naive. Mm-hmm. How can we, in good conscience, do that? How can we do that? It just, it's honestly, we have to find polite language, right?
Yes,
it's honestly, I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
To find the nice words to say this. It's honestly, it's an injustice to the young people of our nation, where the adults do not provide safeguarding policies and procedures, where when adults are predators, they are not adequately reprimanded, and so we continue to expose our children and young people to them. It is an injustice to our young people. And we wonder why a lot of them want to japa and they want to run away. Because if I go to a university maybe down the road, next country, one of those two countries where our children, I don't want to say them, go a lot, they help you face these things.
Yes.
They're safer. So they will rather, mommy, please, let us save the money and let us, go next door, as opposed to come to our schools. Meanwhile, we have amazing faculty members. Our lecturers are sound. They're thorough. They pay attention, well, most of them. And so the outliers, the predators, the people who do things, we need to kind of catch that and just nip it in the bud. But It is from the ministry, it is from the judiciary, it is from the security forces, the police. Because if I go and report my issue to the police, am I going to be protected? Am I going to be safe? Is my family going to be attacked because I went to blow the whistle? That is the bigger issue. Right. Some of those girls, some of those boys are ready to blow the whistle, but do not have protection from the judiciary or from the security systems.
There's also the university governing bodies as well who cover the predators, especially when they're in those councils. It reminds me of a friend who is male and also a professor in the overseas. He says he leaves his door open each time it's a student day or week where they come in to speak with the teachers. Whenever the students come in, he says, if they want to close, leave it open, they come in. It's the funniest thing ever. And every time I call him on video.
Because he has to safeguard himself.
Yeah, exactly. I must say thank you, Doctor, for taking out the time to join us. What's important here is that our future of this nation is, it's critical, and all hands needs to be on deck now, from the judiciary, the government, to the parents, all the way down to the educators. Dr. Issa, always a pleasure, insightful. The future Minister of Education, Dr. Issa, joined us on here. We appreciate you.
From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, pressure, too much pressure, too much pressure.
Don't worry, I know you got it in the bag. The future Minister of Education of Nigeria, Dr. Joy Issa, educationist and also president of the Issa School of Education. Let's go on a short break. Mazzino is on standby to bring us the breakfast headlines. Stay with us.
Welcome again. Another time for more breakfast headlines. My name is Mazzino Appeal. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is back in the country after completing official visits to St. Lucia and Brazil. President Tinubu touched down early Sunday morning at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja. He was welcomed by top government officials, including the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, Minister of Defense, Bello Matawalle, National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, and former Sokoto State Governor Aliyu Wamako. The president's return comes after a weeks-long diplomatic tour that began on June 28. The visit, according to the presidency, were aimed at strengthening Nigeria's diplomatic ties and expanding its global partnerships. Let's turn our attention to politics now. Controversy is trailing the conduct of Saturday's local government elections in Lagos State, with several opposition parties rejecting the process due to widespread irregularities, voter suppression, and ballot box stuffing. Our former Deputy Governor Senator Bucknor-Akerele has called for the immediate cancellation of the polls, citing what she described as massive electoral irregularities. Likewise, the Labour Party's State Secretary, Sam Okpala, condemned the exercise, labeling it a complete sham. As a result, opposition leaders are now demanding a thorough investigation into the election and holding the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission accountable. And still talking politics, the senator representing the Federal Capital Territory in the National Assembly, Ireti Kingibe, has formally announced her resignation from the Labour Party and declared her defection to the African Democratic Congress ahead of the 2027 general elections. Speaking to journalists in Abuja, Kingibe described her defection as a deliberate and strategic political move. She added that her formal induction into the ADC would be marked by celebration. Kingibe expressed confidence in the leadership of her new party, acknowledging that the ADC is still in its developmental stage. Now let's give an update on the public hearing on the Constitution review in the northern region. In North Central, state creation, traditional leadership, and gender inclusion were among key demands as the House of Representatives Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution began its North Central Zonal Public Hearing in Minna, Niger State. The hearing, covering Niger, Kogi, Kwara states, featured robust engagement from civil society, government officials, traditional rulers, and concerned citizens. Top of the list were calls for the creation of 46 new states, 12 of them from the North Central Zone, and over 100 new local governments and constitutional roles for royal fathers.
Living with disabilities, they don't have a place in the justice system. Look at local government autonomy in totality, both finance, administrative, and otherwise. Especially the issue of electoral bodies. If we are in Nigeria, we have one INEC. Why should we have state electoral commission? We have also looked at judicial autonomy. The judiciary should be independent. That is the only way they will dispense justice without fear or favor. The primary school teachers now are the mercy of the state government and the local government. That is why we said there should be an equitable forum that they will get their direct funding.
Niger State in support of the bill because it's going to make Nigeria to really be the giant of Africa by giving us reserved seats. But now we have less than 5% of women in parliament. Women don't have the resources. They don't have the resources, and definitely they will not be able to do politics without resources.
We have to include voting of our Nigerians in diaspora. We must not say more than 100 countries, including South Africa, including Kenya, they are practicing international or diaspora voting. So if we want our vote to count, we want our people to come back home.
Now, Cameroon will vote in a presidential election on October 12th. This is according to a decree issued by President Paul Biya on Friday. Biya, the de facto candidate of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, of which he is party leader, has neither confirmed nor denied whether he intends to run for an 8th term. Several long-standing supporters of Biya appear to be distancing themselves from the 92-year-old head of state who has ruled the West African country for nearly 43 years. But the opposition is deeply divided and is struggling to unite behind a single candidate. And that's all we have for the headlines this morning. Well, do stay tuned because we have more conversation coming up inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. It's the final hour here for Breakfast Extra, and this time we want to step away from politics and policy to examine the very heart of leadership. Whether in government, the workplace, religious institutions, or our communities, the call for empathetic leadership has never been louder. In a world grappling with economic uncertainty, mental health challenges, conflict, and digital disconnection, the leaders who will define the future aren't just those with the loudest voices or boldest strategies, but those with the deepest compassion. Empathy is not weakness. It is power refined by understanding. It's what allows leaders to listen, to connect, to serve, and to guide people through seasons of both triumph and turmoil. And so our guest today lives this truth every day. Joining us is Pastor Charles Badia. He is the head pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, West Family Parish. He's not only a spiritual leader, by the way, he's also a mentor, a counselor, and guide for many navigating the complexities of leadership, purpose, and emotional resilience. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on to the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Let's just get started, shall we? And I would just start by asking about the foundation. At the very foundation, how do you personally define empathetic leadership, and why is it so important in today's context?
Well, for us, empathy, as you're talking of empathetic leadership, it starts with empathy. Empathy simply talks about you feeling for other people, putting yourself in the place of other people. Now, when we talk about empathetic leadership, basically it's about your ability to understand other people's perspectives. It talks about feeling their struggles and then doing something about it. So a leadership that understands other people's perspectives, a leadership that is very, very ready to begin to see how other people are struggling, feel their struggles, and this leadership will then begin to take certain actions compassionately about those issues. That, for us, is what we see as empathetic leadership.
Now, in both secular and spiritual spheres, leadership often demands tough decisions and discipline as well. So how can empathy coexist with authority?
Well, that's the essence of it, because, for many people, anytime we talk about empathetic leadership, especially, people are thinking of things like a leadership. Sorry, I'm having a lot of feedback. Yeah. We're talking about a leadership that is fili-fili, very churchy. So basically what I was trying to say based on your question was that many people think that that once you talk about empathy, it is something that is fili-fili. You cannot take tough decisions. It is about weakness. It is about sentiments. But I want to say very clearly that leadership has no conflict with empathy. Empathy indeed helps you to take tough decisions because, number one, you have understanding. Number two, you are able to see things also and feel what the other person is feeling. And so you are able to deal with the person in a way where you can get the kind of accountability that the person is giving to you. So that for me is the real reason why there is no conflict between having empathy and taking hard decisions, especially in spiritual matters. In fact, it's a little easier when it comes to spiritual. Many times it's tougher when it comes to the corporates and other things, areas where we are having to deal with empathy.
Sir, as we're talking about empathy, many people see empathy as being soft or emotional, and most especially given how patriarchal our society is. Male leaders will see it as being too soft or be too emotional, and people regard leaders as strict and stiff and solid, if that makes any sense. What would you say to leaders, especially men, male, who are taught to repress emotions in the name of strength and solid?
Well, that's one of the misconceptions, that, leadership is about toughness, about strength, but one of the key things that have become very clear is that when you are empathetic, you are able to get more from the person, you are able to have the kind of information that helps you to take better quality decisions. And I want to say it's not just about men. It's simply that generally the impression had been that once you call somebody a leader, he has to be tough. But today, we are getting to know that actual good leadership is an empathetic leadership. I do wish that some of you were part of a conference which we just ended yesterday, where these matters were well laid out, that in whatever sphere you are, whether it's in the home leadership, whether it's leadership in church, or whether leadership in the corporates or in business, or even importantly, leadership in public service, that you give better quality leadership, number one, when you are ready and able to understand the other person's perspective. Whether it's a child, what's the perspective? Why is this person doing what he or she is doing? Then you put yourself in the position, you begin to catch the emotion. And then with that, you are able to take action that the person can relate to. And the person is influenced better because you have taken his or her own perspective into consideration. So for fathers, you can still get the best without being tough. Yeah.
From your experience, I mean, your ministry means that you have worked with people from different walks of life. You have also served them and sort of counseled them, and also been a listening ear, whether it's business owners, students, parents, or even civil servants, right? And so in your experience, how does empathetic leadership affect community building and leading, and also healing as well? Most importantly, healing and growth.
The issue of healing of communities and people, you see, like we keep talking about it, when a person does not feel that you even care to listen to his own perspective, or does not feel that you understand what he or she is feeling, it's very difficult for the person to receive any form of solution that you are receiving. And this is the difficult issue, especially in many areas where we, let me use the public service for example. Today, many times when people have issues, let's talk about Nigeria. People are concerned, they are complaining. Those of us who are leading them are on the other side. Our world is slightly different from them. Empathy makes you to want to carry yourself and understand them their own perspective, listen to them. Very important part of empathy. Number two, if you listen, then you will then be able to feel. If you feel, a man relates to your feeling, and so because the person can relate to your feeling that you can feel, then you will be able to then receive whatever solution you are bringing. I had said somewhere that many times what we think, whether in church or in public service, is to throw palliatives at people. And palliatives for the person is just something that he takes, but he doesn't feel you understand him. So he might take it, but it doesn't help him much. But if we spend a little bit more time trying to get into where the persons are, feel the thing, how are they really feeling? This man who is crying, why is he saying? He may sound foolish, but listen to him. And then try to carry yourself into his place. Whatever solution you are going to give there is going to be more useful, and in fact brings him healing better than anything you throw at him. So I believe healing comes better with empathy.
As we wrap up this conversation, at this point, I do have to ask, how can the current leaders, whether in politics or business or just community leading, how can they cultivate empathy? You know, how can they start to imbibe that in their leadership?
Well, talking about us, how do I cultivate empathy? You see, one of the myths about empathy was that empathy cannot be learned. But that's a myth. You can learn empathy. It starts with a consciousness to understand that we are not achieving much without empathy. And this is always the challenge many leaders are having. Whether I have a background in banking, and in very high performance driven places, it was always assumed that, well, if you decide to be empathetic, that it will make you not to get the kind of speedy results, you cannot take decisions and all that. But we have seen that those organizations and in those little places where you begin to, first of all, allow the people to speak, allow them to understand that you know what they are going about, and get into their life a little bit, then they do better. Now, in corporates, one of the things we need to do is to go beyond the work and begin to think about the person. For example, a staff does not come to work. Why do you not first want to know what he's going through? That may look like time wasting, but definitely, if you get to know and empathize with him, it's very likely you can then know how to deal with that problem you have. So I say the main thing is a decision to start to learn, to first acknowledge that there is value in being empathetic. Then you begin to learn a little bit. There are lots of studies, there are lots of conferences, there are lots of things now. All over the world, empathy has become a major issue in leadership. I'll also beg those, we have just finished a conference on empathetic leadership. Go to the YouTube, go to Lagos Leadership Conference, and I'm sure you can learn a lot more things, because we had good speakers who spoke about how you can become an empathetic leader. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Besides, I will be sending you an invoice or receipt for that promotion. Pastor Charles Quadier, he is the head pastor at RCCG, one of the branches here in Lagos. I want to say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. Leadership is no more just about commanding a room. It's about understanding the people in it. Once again, sir, thank you for reminding us this morning. That's all we can take at this hour. Let's go to a short break. When we come back, we are bringing you sports, and we will also take you to the Creative Corner. After the break, stay with us.
Welcome back. We're just coming off of a joke here. Very interesting. I just heard our producer say he's going to beat the complexion out of somebody. Jocularly.
But before you think it's me, it's not me. I gotta tell you that.
I actually thought it was you.
Because I'll throw a mean
Matthew,
hook.
Thank you for that little interlude there. That was interesting. But let's do the dailies this morning, shall we? Judith, welcome. And it's time for the dailies. We're going to be starting with the popular newspaper, the Punch newspaper for today's dailies. And right there on your screen, as you can see, for the Punch, 2027 APC-ADC coalition scramble for Kano's mega votes. Party stalwarts acknowledge ex-Kano governor's influence, confirm constitution, or rather consultations. NNPP factions differ on alliance move. To the side of that story there, no date yet for NEC to decide Obi's fate, says the LP. We're going to all wait. I think everybody's waiting with bated breath to see the result of that. And reps move to strip president of power to appoint INEC chair. Interesting dynamic.
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you think about that? I mean, it's if you ask me, it's a step in the right direction. When you consider democracy.
Yeah.
And those who have influence to perhaps maybe make things go a certain kind of way or not.
I don't know if it is, because if you strip power, the certain level of power from the INEC chair, what happens is
stripping the president from stripping the president's power to appoint INEC chair. You see.
No, it shouldn't be the president's power, because if it is the president, vested interest.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, I do agree with you. So here, road rage. How unruly drivers assault traffic officials to avoid penalties. At the top there, FG under fire as NNPC confirms refineries not working. And Lagos LG poll. Opposition cries foul over APC's victory boast. I would have not said anything yet if I were them.
But unfortunately,
yeah,
the low turnout is my. Let's move on. I want to say something I don't want to say.
Floodwaters force Makoko children out of school amid disease fears. Makoko is, if you do not know, Nigeria's floating Venice. It's a very interesting place. However, the government have very different view on the place. But I would like to visit there and take plenty of pictures very soon. I share water. I will do that. I share water with
tourists. All those tourists who go there for the very sake of.
All right, can we bring this into a discussion here now?
No.
Let me tell you something about Makoko.
No, please don't do that.
And the what we lose as a state.
Right.
In terms of income and tourism. I think you said the very word, and tourism is it. We've lost an entire beachfront. We have no more beachfront when you consider the Lagos-Calabar highway that's being built, which, by the way, I've been on, and I think it's very interesting. I have a bit of passion for the Lagos-Calabar highway now. However, Makoko is lying there and nobody's doing anything about it. It is a big opportunity for tourism to have people come to Africa to want to see what it's like. If you can't afford Venice, then you can't afford Makoko. And it's a very interesting place with a lot of features, a lot of stories to be told. So instead of break down the place, I think we should actually take advantage of the place.
There was an author that I interviewed on Literati. Her name is Chioma Okereke. She is the author of Water Baby, which follows a young girl called Baby, and she lived in Makoko. And she said when she was doing research on it, she had to go to Makoko. And what was interesting that she quickly found was that the tourists would go into their homes and take photographs. And it was jarring to me when she said that, because these are people's way of life. It's like saying that I'm open. Exactly. So it's very. Do they want to share? Indignities of living in Makoko. Do you get what I mean? Okay. Not saying that Makoko is here. Again, my first lady, I love her real bad. You know what I mean? Like, me and her would go together real bad. And she lives in Makoko. And so there are communities, there are people's lives, but also there's a dire need for healthcare. They do all of their sanitaries in that water. They swim in that water.
Yeah.
There is as much as we want to do tourism, there's a lot that needs to be done for the community in Makoko. As we're losing our beachfronts and waterfronts, the refuse are pushing there. There's so much. So sitting down talking to her is like, I don't know about that tourism part yet because of the indignities that come with it.
Okay,
that's my own argument.
I get you there. You do have points there, but I still think that maybe you can tend to these people's issues and needs while you can still make the place well for tourism. Well, we are going to come back to the dailies, but we have very urgently our News Central sports correspondent on standby because we won't have this conversation here. Now, if you've been following the action at the 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, then I guess you already know what we're about to talk about. WAFCON has been on everybody's lips. It's big headline here, and the Super Eagles made it through to the quarterfinals. Congratulations, girls. Thank you very much for making Nigeria proud. Now, with passion, precision, and plenty of flair, the Falcons have stormed through the group stage, putting on a solid, and I say solid, show of strength and strategy, and reminding the continent why they remain one of Africa's most dominant football forces.
Ah, yes, indeed. So from goalkeeper brilliance to midfield control and those decisive finishes up front, it's been a team performance to watch. Now, the big question on everyone's lips is, what next for the Falcons as they prepare for the quarterfinals? And most importantly, what is the mood in the camp? What are the tactics? And who might they face? Well, to answer all that question, we have our very own sports correspondent, and that is Onyechi Obaro, who is live in Morocco and who has been at the pitch side, the press conferences, and I've watched the training firsthand.
I am jealous.
Onyechi, first of all, if you can feel the jealousy through the room and onto your screen, forgive us.
Yeah, don't forgive us. We're jealous, and we're not ashamed that we're jealous.
Jealous, but also you look radiant, all right? But let's get started. First thing, congratulations.
I'm jealous. I think the jealousy is contagious. I just think the jealousy is contagious.
The first thing, congratulations to the Falcons. Talk to us through the final group match.
Yes, because from the beginning, Maxino read Super Eagles. Even with the fact that we're having the Women's African Cup of Nations, Maxino is still giving the glory to the Super Eagles.
Don't mind
I'm jealous.
I mean, talk to us through the final group match. What stood out to you about the Falcons, their performance?
We're still, today is match day. Of course, Judith, they have Algeria to face for their final Group B match at the Women's African Cup of Nations. Yes, preparations ongoing to face up with Algeria. Algeria is a familiar opponent for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. Though the crop of players who the Super Falcons face in the international friendly, two-legged international friendly in Ikenne, Ogun State, are not the same crop of players that are at the Women's African Cup of Nations at the moment. Yes, we have a little bit of rejig in that system, and the coach of the side said that the players who he used to execute the match in the international friendly are not here. He's also in the dilemma. But for Coach Justin Madugu, he's unfazed by anything that the Algerians will bring into the table. The Algerians have got a clean record in the Group 2. They won their first match against Botswana. They drew their second against Tunisia. So they're on a clean record too. They just sit behind Nigeria because Nigeria has had 3 points, while we have Algeria having just 4 points, generating 1 from that draw against Tunisia. So both sides, there's a possibility that they go through in this competition. But there is one hurdle to face. And this third match will be a big decider to know if Nigeria will finish in second on the group. That's if they lose to Algeria. Because if they lose to Algeria, all 3 points goes to Algeria, and they garner 7 points in total to stay at top. Remember, Nigeria has got only 6 points. So a loss for Nigeria would be Algeria getting to the top of the table, leading the top of the table, or finishing strong in Group B. But if Nigeria gets to win this one, they have a clean one. That's some 3 points garnered from 3 matches played, and they finish with 9 points. Now, this is the first time that the Super Falcons have not conceded in any group match. The first time since 1998 that the Super Falcons have not conceded in any group match in the Women's African Cup of Nations. So this third match will be a great one, history for Justin Madugu, if he can wrap up the third match without conceding any goal.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, almost yeah. Now, there was something that happened in the last match, Nigeria and Botswana. Assistant Oshuala was substituted. There was a reaction from her, and we're wondering what it was. We also got the coach's comments on it. But could you give us some more detail about that occasion, that instance?
All right, Maxino, the reports we got, of course, from that incident and what we saw, placing 2 and 2 together. The players, of course, they went into the locker room after the first half, and after 10 minutes, that break, we saw players coming back into the pitch. Now, this time around, we are seeing a change in the squad line that executed the first half of the competition against Botswana. So we're seeing a little bit of change. Now, Asisat Oshoala walked into the sideline of the pitch, waiting to go into the pitch. Now, we're saying that she has been substituted, but she did not know that she has been substituted. So she was a bit displeased that, why will I be substituted and I do not know about it? She was displeased at the coach. She showed that displeasure to the coach. And the next thing, Asisat Oshoala is moving away from the sideline, walking back into the locker room. You could see that displeasure in her face. She walked back to the locker room. 5 minutes later, we are seeing Asisat Oshoala returning back from the locker room, walking just behind the sideline where the players sit and going to have a sit. Now, that's where we could place 2 and 2 together to understand that Asisat was not pleased that she was substituted, but not told that she will be substituted. I feel she wanted more time on the pitch of play. But the coach knows what he sees. The coach reads the game. The coach understands the game. The coach has the final say. So Asisat's displeasure may not count because the coach's decision, of course, is the final. But at the press conference yesterday, he was squeezed about it, and he said he did not notice anything. He was squeezed about if there is a little bit of indiscipline in the squad, judging by what we saw in that game against Botswana. And he said he did not even notice it. But if he notices any indiscipline in the team, he would deal with it accordingly. So that's downplaying whatever happened between himself and Asisat Oshoala. But I'm very sure they will handle the situation properly, Maxino.
Now, as we head into match day today and as we go into the very high-stakes match, what does her substitution mean for the team? What's the mood like, the atmosphere like for the Falcons in the camp? Are the players confident? Because we know that Asisat Oshoala, somewhat, she's a morale booster for the players, for the Falcons. Are they relaxed? Are they feeling pressured ahead of the quarters? And are we going to see her in this match? Is there a chance?
We were able to join them in training yesterday. Now, one very uneasy thing is that the players trained at 8 p.m. yesterday, and we're wondering what kind of itinerary the Confederation of African Football have for the Super Falcons of Nigeria. One, their training pitch is like 2 hours drive away from Ladubizuli where they play. So that's 2 hours drive, and you're wondering what is really happening. Are there no other training pitches around here that the Super Falcons can use? Now, they had their training 8 p.m. and remember, today they'll be having their game at 8 p.m. That's not a good time for players who are about to execute a game the next day. Match day is the next day. But yesterday camp, everyone's good. There's no injury yet. We are so happy because it's a good thing. It's good news for coaches when they see their players are in good condition. They do not have to struggle to say this my starter is not fit enough to start and I have to execute another game plan. So everyone is in good condition. No injuries. The players understand the task ahead. Remember, we have a Mission X campaign, and that Mission X campaign is for them to have a clean sheet to go to the next round, the quarterfinals, and make sure that they are able to go to the semi-final and even the final to be able to execute that Mission X. We spoke to a few of the players, Odega, who has not been given time in this competition so far. So we're hoping that she can get a chance today. The coach did promise us that he would have to try new players who have not been given time to play in the previous 2 matches. So we're hoping to see a bit of a shake-up, new players executing this one against Algeria. There's nothing to lose because the Super Falcons have qualified already. We just want the bragging right to be able to finish clean, finish with all 3 points, finish 9 points at top of the table, because if the Super Falcons finish at top of the table, they would maintain Casablanca, the Ladubizuli Stadium, where they have been executing their group matches. They do not have to move to another because Group A winner, Group B winner will have to face up with Group A second place. So whoever finishes second place in Group A will come over to meet the Super Falcons if they finish top of the table. But if they do not finish top of the table, they have to relinquish Ladubizuli Stadium where they have been executing their matches and then go to where Group C winner is. So there are some permutations, and the Super Falcons know what is at stake. They must be able to finish at top, finish with 9 points, finish with a clean sheet in all 3 matches, make sure that they maintain their stadium, and also the bragging rights, because the Super Falcons fans in here, they do not have the supporters club. They have fans, Nigerians living in Morocco, not only Nigerians, there are Liberians there who are also rooting for the Super Falcons. There are Ivorians there who are rooting for the Super Falcons. So all this conjoined together, the fans are singing, are chanting. I would say the fans gave the Super Falcons that win against Botswana because they kept cheering them. They kept telling them, you can do this. They gave them nicknames. Every Super Falcon player has got a nickname. So in camp right now, the girls understand, and I'm hoping that they can bring that to the pitch of play. Judith?
The pressure is getting worse.
It's getting worse.
The pressure is getting worse. I must say, we love our bragging rights, by the way. So, Mazino.
Yeah, I wanted to say, let's leave the fans, let's leave the girls, let's leave football. Let's talk about you and your experience in Casablanca.
Oh, gosh.
Because it does seem like the sun is doing you plenty of good. And we're wondering whether you'd be returning back to New Central. But do tell us about the experience there, because I know it's a very interesting place to be at. Let's round up with that.
Maxino, thank you so much. Maxino, you care about me, and I love it. I love it for you. Maxino, I've not been able to find Nigerian food. Oh, my word. In the first place when we got here, it was work. Oh, yes, we had sorted our apartment, so we had somewhere to lay our heads. That's the first priority anyway. But food, Maxino, we've got couscous, eating couscous back to back to back.
That's nice.
Then we have fries. We have to deal with fries and chicken. Oh, Maxino, my stomach is missing some swallow, you know.
God. Oh,
no, it's all good.
When you guys do this thing, it kills me.
We've got a little bit of a change in the daylight system. So they've got midnight sun here. And it means that they've got a longer day. The sun goes down sometime around 9 p.m. At 8 p.m., you see everywhere still very clear, like it's 6 p.m. in Nigeria. So the change, children around here are still playing on the streets as at 8 p.m. So you can see that little change, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And that's why you see more of the matches, some of them being played at 8 p.m. They just want that night filled. So these matches run into sometimes 9:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. But so far, Maxino, I think I'm good. Nigerians, what we do, we're very resilient. We adapt to any situation wherever we go.
Not you say resilience because of food.
The cameraman is saying we're not good, but I'm good.
You are describing, because you don't have your usual food, you're putting it side by side to resilience. Just a funny person. I would love that for you. Well done on all the hard work. We do hope that you enjoy
Food is what will push me. Food is what will push me forward. Judith, I need food. I need to fill up the tank.
You have food. You just don't have swallow. That's the difference.
Thank you very much. It's been grand having you here, sharing your experience and everything. And thank you for giving us that little cherry on the ice cream sundae. And I meant that all pun included. Thank you very much, Onyechi.
Onyechi, thank you. That's pretty much all we can do with this Sunday. Oh, that didn't rhyme. Anyway, that's what we can do right here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this program from Saturday down to this very Sunday. It's been a packed weekend for you, giving you all the election updates, bringing you politics, a little bit of side of, human side of it as well, and also sports. The very best weekend show you can find anywhere. We can bet our money on it. But then, it's bye for now. Make sure to tune in Monday to Friday for Breakfast Central. You got the three trio. That's Joe being then, of course, Olive is going to be with you bright and early Monday at 7 a.m. to give you all the very best when it comes to update on politics and everything else in between for you from Monday to Friday. So tune in at 7 a.m.
That's it from us. We'll see you guys again, during the week, but mostly Saturday morning next weekend. Goodbye, everybody.
Until then, keep safe, drive carefully, and also have Sundays.